our first veteran tonight is Josh Cannon. Josh Cannon will be sharing what he affectionately titled A Memory of Babylon. Josh.
I remember a night early in our invasion of Iraq when I had to take a shit. To do this, we would walk out into the desert with a box with both ends missing, dig a little hole, set the box over it, and use it as a toilet. There I was, sitting in the dark by myself, looking at the Milky Way through a clear desert sky. I began to wonder somewhat aimlessly what the date was. I counted in my head, and I soon came to the 27th of March. This surprised me. The 27th of March that year, 2003, was my 21st birthday. Less than 2 weeks later, we were in Baghdad. We had porta-johns then, and I took a shower for the first time in a month. It wasn't exactly a moment of rest, but at least it wasn't constant convoy travel. Our time in Baghdad was a brief 2 weeks, then we were heading back south. Some headed to Kuwait and then home, and then others were tasked to stay in country longer. I volunteered to stay. I was young and had no commitments at home, and as little as I enjoyed Iraq, at least it wasn't Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. Those of us who stayed were sent to Hilla, a city 57 miles south of Baghdad in the Babel province. The Marine Corps had taken over one of Saddam Hussein's palaces that was situated atop a hill that overlooked the ruins of Babylon. I wasn't sent there. We were located nearby, but my team visited the palace frequently. The first time we drove there, we drove up the winding road leading to the top of the hill where the palace sat. The surrounding countryside was lush, green farmland that hugged the Euphrates River, but was otherwise unremarkable. But then we got to the palace and had the hill's vantage point, and immediately below us were the ruins. I stood on the edge of the massive palace driveway and took the view in. The crumbling walls of the buildings were short, maybe 3 feet high at most, but the layout of the city of Babylon was clear. Enough of the crumbling tan mud brick was left to discern streets, neighborhoods, small houses, big structures. This was a city that Hammurabi made powerful, the capital city of Cyrus, Darius, and Xerxes, famous enemy of the Greeks at Thermopylae. This is where Alexander the Great died. It was without competition the oldest and most fascinating thing I had ever seen. It captured the attention of the other Marines as well, but Saddam's palace was begging to be explored. Even I probably spent more time wandering the ostentatious halls. I spent 6 months in Iraq that trip. The following year, I came back for 6 more. The second trip had none of the excitement or newness. Porta-johns abounded. The sights were actually quite familiar. I even got to chat with some of the Iraqis I had made friends with the first time. I didn't get to see Babylon again, though I was often close to it. My fascination with the place faded as there were too many things going on and little to keep it in my memory. But then I left the Marine Corps and I started college. I took an archaeology class for fun and offhandedly mentioned this story to the professor. He was captivated. American archaeologists hadn't been to Iraq since the late 1970s. Suddenly, my memories came back as I had an audience that wanted to hear. I began to reassess. I stayed with archaeology, eventually getting a PhD. I've spent another year in the Middle East and Eastern Mediterranean, this time broken up by summers excavating archaeological sites in Cyprus and Turkey. I've never gone back to Iraq, but my colleagues and friends have. I keep hoping to hear that someone has started working on Babylon, but sadly, all I read about is archaeologists trying to repair the damage done by US forces. And even this is sporadic. How lucky I am that during a terrible time, where I saw the worst things that I had ever seen and hopefully will ever see, that I got to bear witness to one of the greatest cities of the ancient world. How lucky I am that now I study cities like that and I write and teach about them. The connection is almost entirely coincidental. Babylon did not make me want to be an archaeologist. Those interests were there earlier on. But Babylon did act as a major punctuation point in my life more than once. That crumbling city anchored an awful experience in a sea of scholarly fascination and allowed the horrific realities of war to be tempered by the majesty of history. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. How lucky I am to know you and know your story. incredibly honored to introduce our next storyteller, Carl Truss. Carl Truss is a Vietnam War veteran and Marine and all-around great human. His story is titled Letters from Home. Carl?
Hi, my name is Carl Truss, and I am a Marine Corps veteran. And my story is about my best friend Smitty, who served with me as a Lance Corporal in Vietnam in 1966. Smitty and I always talked about receiving letters from home, which were golden to us. And I want to share some of the letters that were written to him. Smitty's friend Kathy writes, Dear Bobby, we miss being with you every Sunday. Our pastor, our choir, and our Sunday school kids miss you very much. We loved how you led all the worship services for us, and the Sunday school kids miss you especially when you constantly spoke to them about the Beatitudes, which is Jesus' blessings from the Sermon on the Mount. We're always constantly praying and asking God to be with you and to keep you from harm and to bring you back to us safely. Then his brother Jimmy wrote how he has taken over the responsibility of taking care of their dog Rex. Rex always ran to Smitty's room, barking and wagging his tail like crazy whenever somebody mentioned his name. Rex was crazy about Smitty, and Smitty was crazy about Rex. Then his brother Jimmy writes how Smitty had taught them to skip flat rocks across the river. And Jimmy bragged about being able to beat Smitty at doing this when he gets home. And he couldn't wait for him to get home so he could prove to him that he had learned how to do this. Smitty had written a letter to his 17-year-old girlfriend, Lois, describing how we had almost killed a young Vietnamese mom and her babies. We were on patrol in a Viet Cong village, and when our point man suddenly ran back to us, saying that he had seen some Viet Cong run into a cave rather. So we ran over to where they were. We're standing there, Smitty's standing there with his rifle, I'm standing there with my machine gun. We're aimed, locked and loaded, and ready to light them up. Then all of a sudden, somebody heard what sounded like a baby crying. So we stopped what we were doing, we lowered our rifles, pulled the branches off the covering of the cave, and ordered the people to come out. And the first person to come out was this woman. She was nursing a baby in one arm, and she was dragging a little kid with her other arms, and that blew our minds. That freaked us out. We almost lost it. We fell to our knees and thank God that we hadn't fired upon those people in the cave. And Smitty wrote that to Lois, and Lois said, Smitty, I'm sure you would never be able to live with yourself after having had you shot those people. And it's true, we would not have recovered from that. Then this next letter starts with a knock on the door. And when the door opened, standing out on the porch was a Marine Corps captain, a Marine Corps chaplain, and the minister from the church. The Marines were dressed in the uniform of the day, which is the most outstanding uniform in the world, which is the Marines dress blues. It beats every uniform by any other service. And the chaplain was standing there in what looked like his communion robe. And that letter said, the Commandant of the Marine Corps has entrusted me to express his deepest regrets that your son, Robert J. Smith, which is Smitty, that's Smitty, was killed in action on August 2nd, 1967, in the hills surrounding Khe Sanh in South Vietnam. The Commandant extends his deepest sympathy to you and your family in your loss. And that was it. And that ended the letters from home. But it began a time for Smitty where he became surrounded by the love and affection of the souls of more than the 58,318 servicemen and women who lost their lives in Vietnam. August Wilson, a noted Pittsburgh American playwright, says that whenever a person passes from this life to the next, at that moment of our passing, we become a part of everything that ever was. So Smitty, along with the souls of every serviceman or woman that ever existed, is now a part of that paradise created by our God. We honor them by remembering those precious moments that we share with them. And when we think of those thoughts, those loving thoughts, it forms an unbreakable bond between us, all of us, them, and their God, and our God. And once we can feel their presence just about anytime and anywhere, once we think those beautiful thoughts about them. And as long as we speak their names, they are never lost to us. They're in a perfect place, they're at perfect peace, they're in that paradise, and their love flows outward to our family, friends, and our country. And we pray that God's peace be with all of you. Amen and amen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carl. Just so powerful, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
I don't think we say it often enough to those who served in Vietnam and all you saw. Next, I'm actually really proud to introduce our next storyteller, Bonnie Robinson. She's a retired Air Force veteran, 21 years. Bonnie's a dear friend of mine, and so incredibly honored to hear her story titled Drill and Ceremonies. Bonnie?
Thank you, Ariana. I would like to share one of my favorite memories in the military, and it was drill and ceremonies. I loved marching as a kid. I was part of the local marching group in my hometown. And in high school, I marched in the high school drill team. I loved marching with the band. I loved hearing the band playing all the high school fight songs and standing for the national anthem. And it just brought immense school spirit to me. I have to admit, though, marching in basic training was quite a lot different than marching on the high school football field with the band. For one, there was no smiling allowed in basic training while we were in formation. Most veterans, they never have the chance, again, to take part in any type of marching ceremonies in the military after basic training. I was fortunate as I was stationed in Europe for 8 or so years, and I had numerous opportunities for military ceremonies. One of my assignments, I was at a special duty assignment in Izmir, Turkey. I was stationed at a NATO Turkish Air Force base, and it was commanded by a Turkish general. We had a lot of foreign and American dignitaries visiting our base. So for each and every dignitary, we had to perform a pass and review formation for the visitors. Normally the Turkish and the American national anthems were always played. And if additional dignitaries were there, that country's national anthem was played too. We stood for 5 national anthems one time, quite a long time at Present Arms. I was in charge of the American Honor Guard. There was a Turkish major in charge of the entire formation. When I had my first ceremony, I didn't realize that the Turkish major called the commands in Turkish. One of my airmen whispered to me behind me, he says, present arms. So I called out, present arms. I was also stationed in West Berlin, Germany, at Tempelhof Central Airport before the wall came down. Every year, the Air Force joined the Berlin Brigade at their parade grounds for a 4th of July parade. There's a link at my bio that has a clip of the parade. The parade is over an hour long. You can see me at the 50-minute mark. We also took part in a parade called Allied Forces Day Parade. And that Berlin was still considered an occupied city. The Americans, Germans, French, and French, and British military services took part, along with their tanks and their helicopters and any other military equipment they might have had. There's also a link provided in my bio that you can view that parade too. I love doing that parade as we march with all the other foreign services, and they have that exaggerated, hand and foot movement that they do. And then the British had their bagpipes. I love hearing bagpipes in a parade. One of my favorite parts of the St. Patrick's Day parade here in Pittsburgh is the Pittsburgh Police Bagpipe and Drum Unit. In closing, June 12th, 1987, President Reagan visited Berlin. We had a small Air Force Honor Guard formation at the event. I didn't realize that his speech would go down in history. President Reagan said, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall." Never have I felt more proud to be an American veteran, to be stationed in a foreign country, and to be able to be part of this moment in history. Little did we know the wall would fall November 9th, 1989. How ironic it was 2 days prior to Veterans Day. I would like to share a small clip of this historic speech with you.
General Secretary Gorbachev, if you seek peace, if you seek prosperity for the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe, if you seek liberalization, come here to this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, open this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to share one of my favorite parts of my military career. Thank you again.
Thanks, Bonnie. I mean, what a great story and what a historical moment to be a part of. That's fantastic. How cool. Our next storyteller tonight is an 11-and-a-half-year Army veteran from Rankin, Pennsylvania. She's a graduate student at the University of Pittsburgh, pursuing her master's in social work. In her free time, she's a volunteer firefighter. Blair Mickles does it all. The title of her storytelling piece tonight is Dear America, with Love. Blair?
Hey, there it is. Hi, I'm Blair. Dear America, do you like me? I like you. Can you see me? Hear me? I'm afraid I'm often overlooked. I'm a veteran. I know, not what you're expecting. That's the thing with those pesky stereotypes. I'm not always sure which is noticed first. It may be that I'm a female to some, or it may be that I'm Black to others. However, neither of those stereotypes have been very kind to me, whether in uniform or out. It is almost as if I am just not as worthy as the others. I have to work twice or even thrice as hard. Imagine trying to excel at a job while actively being sexually harassed and assaulted by your supervisor. Oh yeah, I know what that is like. Those phone conversations with clients were hard when his hand was rubbing my shoulders or attempting to grope my breasts. However, I was able to maintain it and keep an even tone, even while fighting him off with one hand. It was a shame that I got in trouble the day I finally decided to pull my knife on him while actively working in order to keep him at a distance. However, that was a day in a life. I ultimately was able to protect my soldiers from him by reporting him. However, it did cost me my special assignment. It did gain me a diagnosis though, because of course, I was the problem. The guy that dragged me out of my car and attacked me for refusing to date him, oh, he got a free pass because they said he had PTSD. But combat's different, right? When you're there, life on the line. Leading convoys through Afghanistan with a team of male soldiers that verbalized their desire to not take orders from a female. They go to my supervisor and tell him. He agrees with them. He tells us females have no place in the military. Though at this point, I was a sergeant, promoted in 3 years, thank you very much, with 6 years time in service. I guess those 6 years meant nothing. We won't mention what I endured prior to the deployment. Who volunteers to go on deployment after 2 back surgeries? I do, because as women, we have to work twice as hard. Anywho, This actually could have cost something. We go out and one day this negligence led us straight into an ambush. See the ambush ahead. As the convoy commander, I order the convoy to turn around. What do they say? No, they push through. We get ambushed. We tried to get out. My driver panicked and realized, oh crap, maybe I should have listened, but the dump truck behind us wouldn't let us get out of the kill zone, so we had to just gun it and push through. So as a result, we pushed through, and eventually later on, they were actually given medals and awarded for their heroism for their lack of following orders. Of course I was left behind, no biggie. After all, I don't do it for the medals. I did it for the kids in the villages and others that just want a shot at a fair, good, equitable life. I also did it for you. Well, the assault and even an attempted rape occurred and just continued, but I'm pretty scrappy. I fight back, which a lot of women are scared to do, and I rightfully understand where that is coming from. But because I was an assault magnet, I was suddenly deemed too crazy to continue. This caused me my top secret security clearance, thus ending my career as a linguist. Ultimately, I came home. No one really noticed, just slipped in the middle of the night pretty much. Resumed my role in a community as a firefighter in the town where I grew up. I would hang out at local establishments, and unfortunately, I found that I wasn't welcome there. But then one day, seeing that veteran-owned business decal on a window gave me a false sense of security. I thought, as a veteran, I'd be welcome. Instead, I was caught names such as the N-word and welfare queen. I decided, maybe I should hang out in spaces with more veterans since civilians don't necessarily get me that well. So where else do we go? We go to a local VFW. So I marched right up to that VFW card in hand, and was not even allowed to look inside the door. And these things I tell you, I'm not the only one. Please think of this when you see us. Us can be women. Us can be Blacks. We too are veterans. I just want to live the life that I fought for, free of oppression and marginalization. Currently taking on two master's degrees in social work and human security, my mission is not done. It never will be, as long as there's injustice in this world, and especially here on American soil. When some people discover that I am a veteran, they thank me for my service. My response is always that you were worth it, and I fully believe that. However, my question to you is, am I worth it? If so, how can we make this world a better place for us all? With love, a female African-American, yes, American, veteran. Thank you very much, and I hope this has inspired you to reach out and get to know some of your local vets.
Thank you, Blair. I just want you to know that I see you, and I love you, and I'm incredibly proud of you. Our next storyteller tonight is also a friend of ours from Pitt. His name is Tony Richard. Tony is a change agent, a disabled veteran who served in the United States Navy for 24 years. I don't know how he did it. Tony's story is titled Patriotism and Booty. Tony?
Ladies and gentlemen, the story you are about to see is true. The names have been changed to protect the innocent.
So, like he said, this story is so not about me, but it's about a person that I've come to know pretty well. So I would try to tell it to you like he told it to me. Okay, it's 1981. Raise your right hand and repeat after, wait a minute, and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I will obey the orders of the president-elect. Okay, the orders of the president and the orders of all officers appointed over me in accordance with the rules and regulations of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. So help me God. We had, not we, he. He had friends that had joined the military that would come home driving new Camaros or Buick Regals. And they would have on these fresh ass member only outfits with a wad of money, even if it was a roll of ones with a few 20s on the outside. And his friends would have a lot of stories about booty, not the snack pirates booty, but about booty. I'm sorry, he had started college and decided that he wanted to see something different. So he and his friend navigated the streets of Jackson, Mississippi, dodging potholes and keeping an eye out for anyone that may have known their parents as they traveled to the recruiting office that was located in the black part of town. They pulled on the door to the Air Force recruiting station and were dismayed that it was closed. So when they turned to walk away, like a shark circling at the smell of fresh blood, a Navy recruiter with a tight-ass afro and star-striped uniform said, "Yo, the Air Force don't even like black people. Y'all brothers need to come talk to me." He and his buddy went down the checklist. How much will we get paid? More than y'all's asses are making now. Okay. We heard you shouldn't join the Army or the Marine Corps because you could get killed. Is that true? Yeah. Okay. Can we sign up now and leave in January so we can be home for Christmas? Yeah. Okay. Do you really travel a lot, and will they pay for school if you go back to school, and do you have a choice in your job selection? Yep. Okay. Is the Navy racist? Yeah. But in some ways, it's better than what you have right now, because growing up in Mississippi, y'all know how to deal with this shit. Okay. His recruiter spent a lot of time giving some real good advice, like don't spend your money on cars, stay away from pawn shops, save your money, write your mama, pay attention to white folks, do what you are told, keep your head down, and that brothers have to stick together to make it, and all the other benefits of serving your country. They were almost sold, and then came the money question, the big money question. Is there a lot of booty in the Navy? Are you asking if, I think I know what you're asking. Let's just say women love a sailor in Cracker Jacks. You know what I mean? Bam! Patriotism and booty, cool. They signed up in less than 2 weeks. So off goes these two Southern-born, raised in the church, raised in the South, English-speaking cisgendered black men to the Navy. One was leaving his girlfriend and was worried that she would screw somebody else, because somewhere he learned that once they gave you some, it's yours forever. He found boot camp to be pretty decent when it came to race. Race stuff would flare up, but it would pretty much burn out. It was pretty cool. It was all men together, and they were all different and the same. He didn't have to fake it. He didn't have to be nice. He didn't have to change his language. And all these men would take turns pissing in corners to figure out who the alpha males were. And eventually, they played nice. Downtime in boot camp was spent memorizing the 11 orders to the century and learning Navy history and talking about booty. The booty they left behind, the booty they missed. How they could not wait to get some booty after graduation, and how they hoped she didn't give up the booty to someone else while we were in boot camp. Everybody did not participate in these conversations. A few would walk away or actually speak out and tell us they were not interested. So we created 4 imaginary boxes to put them in. One was goody two-shoe, lying ass. You just couldn't get any. Or maybe you were gay. We sometimes spoke as though there wasn't another human being involved, as though we didn't have close friendships with friend girls that we never even wanted to have sex with, or that we didn't have grandmothers, or we didn't have sisters, or we didn't have mothers, or we didn't have a neighbor, or we didn't have a school teacher that impacted our lives, as though we had never been in love. That some of us did not leave someone that we cared about very deeply and that we missed them, or that some of our hearts had not been broken like stained glass, as though booty was a thing that we left behind that we would pick up and leave, like a duty station. As though we had lost parts of our humanity along the way because it was so buried in our experiences and the requirements of becoming men. During these conversations, the color of our skin or where we were from did not matter. We seamlessly joined together. It was like we melted into this crock pot of male domination, sexism, and patriarchy. An opportunity for me as a Black man to pretend that around these white boys, my skin color didn't matter, all at the expense of women. You see, the military didn't create male domination, sexism, and patriarchy. I learned it when I left my mother's womb. I learned it when I was identified as a boy. I learned it on the playground. I learned it in the neighborhood. I learned it at my church. I learned it at my school. I learned it looking at TV. I learned it from other boys. I learned it from men in my neighborhood, good men that had learned it the same way that I had. You see, it's not our fault, but it's our responsibility. We men have a lot of work to do, so let's take a different oath. So if you could raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your full name. Do solemnly swear to support and defend the right of all women to live free of rape, harassment, abuse, and degradation in all forms on every inch of the planet. That I will continually connect with other men to create support for us to do our work of undoing what we've learned and to ensure women will have equal access to goods, resources, and opportunities, and even life itself. I would follow the leadership of and listen to women. I won't waste my time guessing about what they need. They will tell me, and I will believe them. I will lovingly challenge other men and allow myself to be challenged, to stay uncomfortable, to stay in uncomfortable situations and conversations about the impacts of our behavior, past and present. It will change my behaviors. I will do better now. So help me God.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you not only for your new oath, but for your belief. We need more men like you. Our next storyteller tonight is also a Marine. I feel like there's like a lot of them tonight for whatever reason. But we had another Marine who served in combat operations both in Iraq in 2008 and Afghanistan in 2010. Joel Laudenslager is going to share his story with us tonight, and it is titled No More Heroes. Joel.
Throughout our lives, there are moments that define us, moments that shape us and impact us continually. It is in these moments which we learn more about ourselves than we thought possible. And for me, that was in Afghanistan in 2010. It was in a 4-hour firefight, one of our longest. The section had become split, divided in an ambush. And to be completely honest, we were not in a good position. And yet, a Marine rose to the occasion. His name was Corporal Jekyll. On his own volition, he got up and began to cover the split section's withdrawal, carrying a 35-pound machine gun and 1,000 rounds of ammunition, leading when the others there that were high rank of him. He would move back all the way to be willfully exposing himself to enemy fire. And it's because of him, no one died that day. And when I reflect on that moment, it became my realization that was the pinnacle of my life experience. I had mentored Jagle since he was a young PFC, had influenced his actions, and I could not be proud of him. I could not be prouder to see him rise to that occasion and achieve things that he never thought possible. And he was a hero. And this was a high point in my life, there on that mountaintop. And then the wars were over. There were no more heroes. And I found myself returned to the real world. And its deep, dark loneliness. And I, personally, like many of my brothers and sisters, turned to alcohol. And I fully indulged in that for nearly 3 years. And to give you a general idea of the scope, I would dump over $35,000 into my addiction. All I wanted was meaning in the world. All I wanted was that greater reason, purpose. And I'd seek out other heroes to emulate. I also wanted to build them. I did a bunch of stuff. I got involved in nonprofits, held a few leadership positions, and yet I couldn't find that purpose. It didn't seem to exist. There were no heroes, and I was lost. Yet for as often as I had thought, my military experience, about that time I walked with giants, the reality was I was trapped by it. I didn't move on. I was frozen in place by ideally warm memories of my brothers and sisters in arms. A rosy stagnancy and false security. And the reality is there is purpose moving forward. There's a life after service. And it's something you might have been heard trumpeted many, many times. It's finding your passion. It's sifting through 1,000 different interests and finding that one passion. I was fortunate. For me, it was helping others accomplish things they never thought possible, to help them grow, adapt, and overcome challenges. It was mentorship. So I did not figure that out till I joined the corporate world and got involved in programs. The point is, it's important for us to move forward from our past highs. Whether you're a veteran or a civilian, all of us have our past highs that linger in our thoughts. It can be high school, it can be a great career, it can be something you did once amazingly in sports. But these bittersweet memories that we can't go back to hold us back. Yes, they provide us comfort, but we have to be more than our past. We have to give more. We have to live for more. We have to move to our future. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel. And thank you for your authenticity and for your realness. And I'm grateful for your perseverance. Our next storyteller tonight is a Vietnam era veteran as well. He served in Lebanon, Vietnam, and Desert Storm. His name is Robert Squarek, and his title of his story is Eternal Silent Night.
My name is Robert Squarek. I served in Vietnam, Lebanon, and Desert Storm. I'm a film student at Community College of Allegheny County and made this video as a public service announcement for the Veterans Crisis Hotline. It tells the story of a Vietnam veteran cop who is retiring from the force after his last shift on Christmas Eve. He recalls the death of a Desert Storm veteran, Victor, earlier that day. It asks the question, after war, are you the victor or victim?
Trying to get him to stop.
So incredibly powerful and moving, Robert. Thank you for that unique story. Next, we have Brittany Chantel. Brittany Chantel is a singer, a songwriter. She's a visual artist. She's a dear friend of mine. Very excited to hear her story tonight. And her story is titled, actually, I've forgotten her title. What's the title of Brittany's story?
It's Jedi.
Oh, Jedi. That's right. So Brittany's title is Jedi. So enjoy.
Alaska. Hello? Oh. Jedi. Hold on one sec. What time is it? 3:33. Oh man, how's Afghanistan? Oh, I didn't even know you were already back. What? Oh. Well, what's wrong? No, Jeff, what's wrong? Oh my God. I'm so sorry. Wow. I'm so sorry. Wait, what do you mean? No, no. Jeff, that's... It really fucking pisses me off. I'm so sorry you're going through that. No, 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 no. What? Are you fucking serious? Well, can you tell me everything that happened? What the fuck? I'm so sorry. No, no, listen. First of all, it is not your fault that your sergeant died. It's not. No. It is not your fault that your sergeant died. Second, no, it's not. Secondly, your command shouldn't be making fun of you. That really fucking pisses me off. Do you have roommates right now? What? Are you fucking serious? Jeff, you have to tell someone. What do you mean? Are you fucking serious? Yo, this pisses me off so much. I'm so sorry, Jeff. So they were friends. Jeff, I'm so sorry. You shouldn't have to be going through this right now. No, listen, you're not a bad person. No. Stop. You're not a bad person. Jeff. Jeff. No, you're not a piece of shit. Do I have to bring up basic training? Do I? Really? Basic training? Do I have to remind you of what you did for me? When I had a 103-degree fever for 3 days, and you, firstly, one, kept it a secret from everyone, because that's what I wanted. And then two, you went into the drill sergeant's office and stole ice for me. I'm telling you. Listen. That might be... No. That might be something small to you, but that was so big for me. You're not a piece of shit. That wasn't your fault. It wasn't your fault. I really need you to know that. I have to ask you something. Listen. It's okay if you don't want me to. You can say that, but would you be okay if I told your mom? No. I think she could call the base. I think she could go to the news. She can get something done. You shouldn't be getting treated like this at all, and also you should be able to get access to help. Well, can you see a civilian therapist? It's so fucked up. I'm so sorry you're going through this. I'm so sorry. Well, listen. I'm gonna talk to your mom, and we're gonna get you out of the army, okay? No. I believe that we can. I'll do it if I have to. No, we are. We're gonna get you out of the army. Okay. Okay, well, what are you about to do when we get off the phone? Is that it? Alright. You sure? Do you have someone you can talk to? Okay, good. Alright. Well, I'm gonna talk to your mom and message your mom as soon as we get off the phone, okay? And call me if you need anything at all. Anything at all. All right? You promise? Okay. All right. Love you, man. Bye.
We lose so many service members to suicide each and every day. So, Brittany, your story is incredibly powerful because I know firsthand how hard it is to be the one on the other end of that phone. Our next storyteller tonight is Jack Merchant. Jack is also a Vietnam veteran. He was an Army combat medic. Jack, in his civilian life, after he got out of the service, served as a mental health nurse specializing in forensic nursing. Jack shares his story tonight titled Haircut. Jack?
Yeah. Well, it was a nice, hot, humid day in Vietnam, not unusual. I was at the battalion aid station, and then we got a phone call, not a phone call, radio call, saying dust offs, the medevac helicopters were bringing in a lot of wounded. So we scrambled to get ready, getting the IV stuff, getting tape ready, and all of a sudden, in come the stretchers. Now, the quiet little aid station now becomes a room of sensory overload. There are people yelling, medics yelling to get supplies, yelling for help. The patients or the wounded guys, they're screaming in pain, they're crying in fear. You hear this all the time. Doc, don't let me die. Don't let me die. Am I going to die? But you have to just close your ears to these and do the best you can. Now, there's a lot of blood, gunshots and stuff like that bring out a lot of blood. And you can smell that in the air. Then burnt flesh. It's a smell that I can't get rid of anymore. When people are really wounded, a lot of times they lose control of their bowel and bladder, so there's shit everywhere, there's piss, vomiting, but you can't stop. You have to keep going. In one particular incident, I was breathing, that's mouth-to-mouth resuscitation for a wounded guy. There was a couple medics trying to start IVs, trying to stop the bleeding, and I was doing the breaths. And I noticed out in not far from me, there was this NCO. He had a nice clean uniform, not like ours, virtually soaked in blood. But he kept looking, and I kept him in the corner of my eye, but I had to stand up to get a better position and to get breath and air for myself. He came over to me, and what he said, I will never, ever forget. He just looked at me and said, when this shit's over, you need to get a haircut. I couldn't stop because I had to just keep going because I have a dying man with me. Well, hours and hours later, things were cleared up, and I went outside and I saw him. I had a lot of adrenaline going through my body, and I went up to him, and then I told him what I thought of his army, his regulations, of his war, and I said what I thought of him, and turned around and went back into the aid station. A short time later, a young lieutenant approached me, and was telling me I should not talk to his NCOs that way. I actually told this lieutenant what I thought of his NCOs, his Army, his war, and it came out what I told him what I thought of him. I gave him a brisk salute, did a bow face, and I left. The very next day, this sergeant came up to me with orders. I was being transferred to a very small unit in a mountain yard village. There I would be stationed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with 5 other GIs. Well, the gun truck came to get me. It was an hour ride out of the perimeter, which kind of scared me. And as I got into the village, I actually became very flustered. I wanted to give a good impression with the mountain yards, but I lost it. The villagers came around the truck, and there, most of the women, didn't matter what age, were naked from the waist up, bare-chested. I'm not used to that. But I didn't want to, like, oh, what do I do? So I pretended I didn't see anything. I kicked the door open to the truck and immediately fell right out of the truck. Down to the ground I go. I went this way, my rifle went that way, and out of nowhere, this little mountain yard girl ran up to my rifle and grabbed it, and she starts running towards me. The barrel of the rifle is pointing at my chest. I'm thinking, God, is she going to shoot me? I don't know what. I wasn't thinking right. I was panicked. And I am crawling backwards as fast as I could. Well, she came up to me and just simply handed me the rifle. She turned around, and to the rest of the villagers, she went, GI Buku Dinki Dao, which actually means the GI is really very crazy in the head. Everyone got a chuckle out of that, and I figured this was a good thing. I stayed in that village for a little over 2 years. I took care of their wounds, their bruises, their illnesses, and whatever. I even delivered a couple babies in that village. I actually then became the village Buxi, which means doctor. It was one of the best experiences I ever had in my life. Thank you for listening to my story.
Thank you so much, Jack. So great to hear your story. To close out our evening tonight, it is my pleasure to welcome our gracious host, Ariana Hunter, to tell her story titled Effin' Patriot. Ariana.
Cece was a waitress. She'd have 3 different uniforms neatly pressed and on hangers as she left the house early in the morning. I wouldn't see her again until the next morning as I got ready for school, the same hangers and keys in her hand. Stephen was a hotel maintenance worker. He spent his nights unclogging toilets and changing light bulbs. He'd sometimes pull in the driveway just as the bus was arriving to pick us up. I ensured to wrap my arms around him and kiss his rough cheek before climbing on the school bus. My family of 10 kids were part of the working poor. My parents, Cece and Stephen, would work 40 hours a week and still not have enough to make ends meet. I can remember often waking up either with no water on or the electricity being shut off. We probably complained, but I think we never complained. I'd just throw my toothbrush in my backpack and brush my teeth when I got to school. During the holidays, I'd tag along with my mom to pick up a box of food from the food pantry. And I really wanted to go because at the bottom of that box was often a little plastic baggie full of candy that I could sneak and then not have to share with my siblings. I love my community. They ensured we were taken care of when times were tough. It's why when I woke up to seeing the planes crashing into towers on that fateful morning of September 11th, I knew I had to do something for my community that had already done so much for me. On November 16th, 2001, 19 years ago, I stood on the worn brown carpet of the Phoenix, Arizona MEPS, which is the Military Entrance Processing Station. I raised my right hand and said, I, Ariana Hunter, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I will obey the orders of the President of the United States and the orders of the officers appointed over me, according to the regulations of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. So help me God. I served honorably. I loved my job and the men and women I served with. I was a radio communications operator and maintainer. That means my job ensured that those who needed to talk could. I'm really good at that, if you hadn't guessed. We were what we affectionately called the Camo Platoon. I was the only woman. But every time they thought I couldn't do something, I couldn't measure up, I showed them. When it was time for a platoon run one time, they all sprinted ahead of me in a cloud of dust. I was pissed. I worked out twice as hard for weeks. And on that next platoon run, when they looked to their left or right, I was right there. It was then they knew I wasn't going anywhere. I trusted them all with my life. So on February 12th, 2003, I landed on the unfamiliar sands of Jordan, on the border of Iraq. I was nervous about going to war. I was 19. But I was confident of the abilities of those around me. We would be okay. We would go home to our families. We would win this war. We're fucking patriots. On February 28th, I was doing my job, preparing for an impending war, when a sergeant I was on duty with removed the empty magazine from his M16. He shoved it in the door. He ensured it was locked, that no one could get in. He raped me. The events of that day stay with me. They changed me. But what it didn't do is change my love for my community or my country. Because God damn it, I'm a fucking patriot. Thank you.
Thank you, Ariana. I am so moved to be here tonight and in the midst of these amazing storytellers and servicemen and women. Thank you, Ariana, for your leadership and hosting us tonight and your incredible generosity in bringing us all together. This concludes the story portion of our evening. Before we welcome our performers back, I just want to let you all know out there that we are going to open up the chat now. So if you want to type in applause, if you want to say hello to the performers, if you have any feedback to them, we welcome that. And now I am glad to have Larry Richert join me back on screen. Hello, Larry, as we welcome everyone back.
First, Mariah, thank you and the Pittsburgh Public Theater for a very powerful evening of storytelling and so many different ways to tell and share each individual's journey, and that we appreciate each of you for the bravery it takes to do that. So let's welcome again Josh Cannon, who I understand may be dealing with a child that needs to go to bed early, and we certainly understand that. So Josh Cannon, we appreciate you. Thank you. From the United States Marine Corps, Carl Truss. Carl, thank you. And for those that don't know, Carl is a photographer that works for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So in my side hustle as the public address announcer at Heinz Field, I've worked with Carl for a decade, and Carl is one of those guys that does his job, does it at an extraordinary level. And Carl, thank you. Appreciate your participation tonight. There you are, Carl.
Thank you, Larry. It's my pleasure, and it's been fun working with you. I've learned a lot.
Well, it's an honor to work with you, and I appreciate the Pittsburgh Steelers' recognition of all our men and women who serve, and they do that each and every game, as you know. And
Right.
you were one of our recipients, so thanks again for sharing that powerful story of your experience in Vietnam.
Larry, can you do me a favor? Can you give me, and it's third down?
It's third down and 10.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you, Larry.
See how that goes Sunday against the Cincinnati Bengals at Heinz Field. 4:25 kickoff as the undefeated Steelers hope to continue that. We also want to thank Bonnie Robinson. Bonnie, being a part of history, I can still remember, and you're right, what an iconic thing to have Ronald Reagan say, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down that wall." So thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And sharing your story. Also want to thank Blair Mickles, United States Army. Blair, very powerful in this time of racial tension to be recognized for somebody as you have, broken the glass ceiling and set the bar very high. And we support you, Blair. Thank you. Blair, still with us? If not,
Yes, sorry. Thank you. Thank you. It's been my honor. And I just hope that it just makes people give a second thought and a second look at not just veterans, but each other.
no, absolutely, Blair. It's very brave, and appreciate your story very much. Also, Tony Richard. Tony, thank you for sharing your personal story.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for having me.
I think, patriotism and that other thing caught my attention. I'll just say that. Appreciate your powerful story about how men need to be better men in the way we treat women. So thank you for that, Tony.
Thank you.
Also, Joel Laudenschlager, No More Heroes, United States Marine Corps. Joel, thank you. And I want all men and women who have served to know that in those dark hours when you think you're alone, there are many, many people who want to support you and want to find a way to help you in your time of need. But thank you for your service to our country.
Thank you, Larry. Appreciate it.
Robert Skwarek. Robert, that was a pretty incredible way to tell your story. Thank you. There are so many ways to reach out and touch people's hearts, and you were able to do that today. So thank you, Robert.
My pleasure. Thanks for watching.
And Brittany Chantel, who's not with us tonight, but we saw her powerful story and film as well. And we also want to thank Jack Merchant, United States Army medic in Vietnam, his haircut story. Jack, I can't imagine what you had seen and gone through, and pretty amazed that you found helping those helpless people was a highlight in your life. So thank you.
It was a pleasure telling the story.
And we never gave the Vietnam veterans enough credit and appreciation. So I hope it's not too late to thank you and welcome home.
No, it's not. Thank you.
Ariana Hunter. I'm not sure what to say, except that you're a very brave woman. And sometimes the enemies you fight aren't the enemies that live in a different place. And we support you and want you to know that we're with you. And thank you for having the bravery to share your story.
Thanks, Larry. Actually, say now that like what those who have survived from military sexual trauma not only deserve a fucking medal, but it's the worst kind of friendly fire that there is. So thank you for being here tonight and supporting our veteran community. It means a heck of a lot.
Well, Ariana, you're so brave to tell that story. And I feel like I speak for a lot of Americans, again, without political affiliation. We appreciate the men and women who served, your families who also sacrificed greatly. And we thank all of you. So let's hear it for our collective group of veterans willing to step up and share their stories. I salute all of you, and I'm proud to be American because of men and women like you.
Thank you so much, Larry. I'd love to actually invite everybody back on screen now. If we can all gather one more time, everybody who's still with us and available. Hi, and I invite you all to take a bow. Before we close out, anything anybody else would like to share that maybe you didn't have a chance to share? Just making sure.
I just real quick like to say, like, for everybody that participated, I'm different because of listening to your stories. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Tony. I am sad to see this end, and am again so glad to be here, and also feel changed. On behalf of everyone out there watching tonight, thank you again. And for all our viewers, thanks for spending the evening with us. For those of you who may be moved and who might be interested in donating to an organization that serves veterans, we just want to recommend What a Veteran Looks Like, where Ariana is co-founder. What a Veteran Looks Like seeks to engage and build supportive communities, develop human-centered services and programming, and lead collaborative training efforts to better serve the needs of minority veteran populations. You can donate at their website at whataveteranlookslike.com, and we'll also put that in the chat. We hope to see you next Thursday for our reading of Redux. I think Rob Zellers was here with us viewing tonight, and you can check out ppt.org for more details there. Until then, everyone, please stay inspired, be well, do good. Thank you again for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Mariah.
Thank you, Mariah.
Thank you.
And Billy Jenkins, Sergeant Major, United States Marine Corps. Hoorah!
Hoorah, hoorah.
Happy birthday, Marine.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy Veterans Day to all of you and all of your families.